Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with CEO Peter Mann of Oransi. Peter, it's great to connect with you. Again, you're the CEO and founder of a Virginia-based Oransi. You're a leading air purification company known for its efficient, intuitive, and reliable products for consumers, for schools, for organizations, and for businesses. So thanks for being on the show. We're going to dive into the business and just kind of get to know you as a person and CEO. I'm a business coach. I work with people all over the globe who are successful and stuck, and I work with them to get unstuck. So I always like to start off talking to my guests and say, in business today, where's your stuck?
Wow, that's quite a question. I would say I don't know if this is a great answer, but I think we're in a really good place. We've been working for the last 2 to 3 years on setting up our factory here and reshoring, and it's been a bit of a process. Historically, we've largely manufactured in China and contract manufactured, and now we're moving to manufacture everything ourselves. And so it's been a bit of a process to more or less create a local supply chain. And I don't know if it's necessarily been, stuck as much as figuring things out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, I always look at kind of being stuck, which means you're close. So in any adjustment, as we're adjusting through any parts of our business to get back into alignment, it forces us to be strategic and look at things, Think Community, you've heard me talk about this, just with new eyes and new perspectives, because that's what can kind of accelerate, the newness. I love that you're talking about, hey, we're doing this, and it's just it's new for us as we build our own supply chain and start doing things ourselves. So in that, I always, as I guide my clients, I always think it's important to make sure, you're asking the questions of, if you're an outsider looking in, what's the kindergarten question that they would ask you about what you're doing? There's that old story about the truck that gets stuck under the underpass, and they bring out all these engineers, and they're like, oh, we're gonna have to take down the bridge, and some 7-year-old says, well, why don't you just let the air out of the tires? So how do you when you're going through this evolution and transformation, what's one question you ask yourself to give new perspective?
Yeah, so I guess just to give some background on our industry, the air purifier market, I would say prior to COVID, it was a very niche market. And then during COVID, it just kind of exploded, where there was more demand than supply, and a number of new entrants entered the space. And now the market's kind of back to 2019, early 2020 levels, but we have all these competitors. So it's kind of, for us, I think it's calling a spade, and it's like this market has kind of become a commodity. And I think it's just as painful as that feels. I think it's the reality of the situation. And so we ask, how do we compete in this marketplace? Why should somebody buy from you when there's 100 other guys making something very similar? And what is that story? And part of it's our reshoring effort in figuring that out, but doing it in a way where we're cost competitive with the imports, but and ideally higher performance. And so that's really our focus. And so the question we ask is, does what we're doing take out cost, and does it improve performance? Does it create better value for the customer? Because we're kind of almost in like a razor blade kind of a market now, where it's like, you don't care what the brand is. And we were just at a conference last week in Alaska, and we spoke with a number of health experts, and they were saying, we're asking, well, what brand do you have? And they're like, I don't know. It's just this box that sits in the corner. So it's like, oh, that's painful to hear, but it's the reality of the situation, and you have to live in the reality of where the customers are.
No, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about the reality where customers are today. It seems to be in many industries, and you've kind of shared the peaks and valleys of yours, but it seems, in today's industry, what a customer thinks today may be different in 6 months. It's really keeping your finger on the pulse and and almost forecasting what they'll be thinking before they think it. And so how are you doing that in your boardroom?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I mean, we sell primarily direct, and so we get a lot of really good feedback from customers, and we, solicit feedback, and it's just being honest with where the customer is, and I see a lot of our competitors adding a lot of tech to the products, which don't really do anything to clean the air. It just gives it more features. And, we keep hearing from customers, a lot of them, they don't really care about that. They care about price. And so we're like, all right, we're laser focused on price. And we keep looking at how do we, be more efficient in what we're doing? How do we scale what we're doing efficiently? And stay true to that. And there's so many different directions we can go, but it's about maintaining focus and not losing perspective on, what's going to best connect with the customer.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. So this isn't your first time in this industry. You built an air purification company that you exited after building it for 7 years. And so as you're looking now in this new business, how are you looking at scaling? And, for those who are looking to not only scale, but also exit, what advice would you give them today?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the question, why should we buy from you? Is well, how are you different than anyone else? What is your unique selling proposition? And to be really clear on what that is. And if you don't have an answer, then your customers don't know either. And so that's really where our focus is. I guess about 2 years ago, we merged with an electric motor company, and that kind of set us on a different path to reshoring manufacturing and making products here. And I think what separates us, in addition to manufacturing in the U.S., is that we're an electric motor company, I would say, instead of an air purifier company. And so longer term, we have the ability to make really anything with an electric motor in our facility.
Yeah.
And our focus is really about value and delivering that to the customer in a way that's better than anyone else. And so, I think if you're getting started in business, it's a very competitive marketplace. The market doesn't really care about you. That's just the realities of it. And it's just like, what is that connection you can make with the customer to where they emotionally want to buy your stuff or want to talk about it with other people?
Yeah.
And, and it's about stories, but, it's also, it has to align with what someone cares about. And so that's, kind of where we are. And, and for me, it took me some months to really accept that our category is a commodity.
Yeah.
it's
right.
It's like tough medicine. It's like, oh gosh.
Yeah. I know I hear you on that one, but I think it forces us to really kind of zoom in on, the how we're going to sell, how we're going to differentiate ourselves, and the slivers and the nuances. As you're talking about things, you're talking about unique value prop and clarity. To me, it's like, right, if I'm in the boardroom, I'm thinking, all right, how do we get our message across in under 7 seconds? It's because that's the attention span of people today, and that's what I'm zooming in on. Because otherwise, if I can't prove to them how I'm different, or that I'm the only choice or the best choice or the choice, then I'm gonna run into obstacles. But to me, that's what makes business fun. That's what makes business fun. It's like getting to simple, right? If the old saying, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter speech. It takes a lot of time to get to simple. And I think a lot of companies, Peter, kind of go to the sidelines and throw their hands up and don't know what to do, because getting to simple can be really, really hard. It's not simple to get to simple.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. It's about, yes, simple is hard to do, but it really, it connects with
right.
people. And it's,
let's talk a little bit more about you. You went to college on a Navy ROTC scholarship and then served 4 years including a tour in the Red Sea during the first Gulf War. So thank you for your service. Very grateful for that. But we were talking briefly before we went live, and you were diagnosed with autism, and now you're an advocate of autism, and you got diagnosed with autism during COVID. And so, what led to that? And just kind of talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I would say it was really my wife. She was watching, I think, CBS Morning Show, and they did a profile on a woman who's autistic, I think works for NASA. And she was basically just describing her traits. And she watched it, and she's like, "Oh, you need to watch this." And so I like rewound it, and then I went and watched it, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds just like me, like hyper focus, seeing details that other people miss, just a few things that really separated me from a lot of other people that I've known." And that kind of set me on a path of am I autistic? And I think the other thing is, in our personal relationship, there's been moments where she's like poured out her heart to me, and and if I wasn't feeling well, like I just had like no thoughts in my head.
Mm-hmm.
and she's looking for like a human response, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I have no words, which is the honest truth, but it's not received very well
Right.
when you say that. And so like that was a couple weeks before she saw the CBS show, and she saw that, and she's like, oh, maybe that's what's going on. And so I went online, and they have a number of online screening tools, and the best one is by this guy, Simon Baron-Cohen. He's a professor at Cambridge. He's cousins with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh yeah,
Borat.
right, yeah.
The comedian, which is kind of funny. But anyways, he has a 50-question assessment. So your score is 0 to 50, and most people score 17 or 18. Autistic people tend to score 30 or above, and I scored a 43.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started taking more online assessments, and it's like every single one was pretty consistent with that. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to be a poser. Let me go and find an autistic center. And what I found is they're all geared, not all, but almost all geared towards children. That's where they do the diagnostics. And I found one that would do adults, but I would have to wait 18 months. And so during COVID, I found someone that does telehealth, and over some period of months, we went through the assessment and gave me the official diagnosis. But it was a bit of a process. Yeah.
How did you process that, and what did it do for you? Did it put definitions on things that how I know I mean it's not the same. I'm dyslexic. I found out when I was in my early 30s. I went to my therapist. I took a test. He said, "Oh, you're dyslexic," and it was so nice to put a definition on the struggles I had with learning and things of that nature. Did you find that, and was how did you define it? Was it easier for others around you, like in the scenario that you shared with your wife, for them to define it?
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. I mean, I think when you're diagnosed and you don't know you're autistic, like for me, you go back and relive so many of life's moments, and you see it through a different lens. You're like, holy cow, that's why I was, scolded constantly for not making eye contact. And this is it's like all the stereotypical things. It's like, wow, it's like, that's why I acted this way in this situation. And you kind of give yourself a break a little bit. And and I don't think being autistic is in any way being defective or lesser than. You're just different. And it provides a clarity and understanding for, how you are in certain situations. And I think it helps other people to set expectations and just have better awareness. So I think overall it's been really a positive thing for me, but I know the stigma is quite negative. And I'm autistic, and I didn't even really know what autism was very well until I started, really digging into it and better understanding exactly what that even means.
Well, it's great that you're doing work to get rid of the stigma, because what I'm hearing you say is, and I find, for for a lot of people I know with disabilities, they see things differently. I know I do for sure, right? I hear things differently. I see things differently because I've had to because of how I learn. But it brings so much great things to the table. So I appreciate you wanting to talk about it, talking about it, and advocating for yourself and for others. So thanks for that. That's great.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to add the unemployment rate is like real amongst all the, it's considered a disability. I think it's about the highest unemployment rate, and it's because autistic folks tend not to survive the interview process. And so I think there's just so much more that companies can do in terms of awareness and setting up a interview process that's friendly to everyone, and doesn't just like weed people out in the process just because of how you naturally are.
I love it. Good. Thanks for saying that. That's great. And I work with a lot of companies that I coach on the interview process. And that's something I've never thought of. And so I appreciate you just kind of helped me a lot. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Talk a little bit about your company and who your ideal clients are, Peter.
Yeah, so we're in a electrical motor technology company. We make HEPA air purifiers, and our customers are folks looking, really for, to breathe cleaner air. It's a wide spectrum. We worked with Google and they gave us some demographics. It's really every age group from 18 and up. So, but different people have different concerns. It could be asthma, could be, some seniors with COPD or emphysema. Wildfire smoke out west is a big one. COVID, was a big one. That seems to not be such a case anymore. And with climate change, the allergy seasons are getting longer and more intense, and so that's another one. So it's really a solution to a problem, and the problems are really kind of what's in your air, and folks having sensitivity to that. So it's really, to me, it's pretty interesting because it's so varied and it's so broad.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. All right, let's do a quick speed round. You ready?
Sure.
A book, a TED Talk, or an article that's had an impact on you?
I'd say This Is Marketing by Seth Godin.
Yeah, it's such a great book. I love his work. Yeah, I love his work. And he's great. The best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
I think it's probably, I'm stealing from the Seth book, is build marketing into your product.
Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. Finish this sentence. I'm going to bring back something that you said earlier, and I think you'll answer it probably the same way, but a question that everybody needs to ask themselves in the boardroom is?
Oh, wow. A question everyone needs to ask themselves in the boardroom. I think of several questions. It's, are we aligned?
Yeah, it's a great one. And one thing everybody can do to learn a little bit more about autism is?
Wow, I would say, there's a lot of good resources out there. I would say follow the experts that, what I found is interesting is the people with the best advice are those with the lived experience. And so if there's any therapist who is autistic, I would defer to them because there's, historically a lot of the research that's gone into it is not by people who have the lived experience and they don't fully get it. So I would, rather than people that, or have, ulterior motives with autism, it's kind of a long story, but I would say stick with autistic experts.
All right, good. Thanks for that. Think Community. I love this podcast because I get to bring on guests who are in alignment with my mission of helping successful people who are stuck get unstuck. And Peter, you did a great job of that today, not only talking about your company, but a little bit about your personal life and a little bit about marketing and a lot about business and where your stucks are and what you do and questions you ask yourselves to differentiate yourselves. But Think Community, I just want to extract one thing that Peter talked about, which is you really should be spending time thinking about marketing. even more and more and more every day, because we don't have a lot of time to get our message across to people. It needs to be clean, it needs to be crisp, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be get across to them quickly. And so focus on marketing. Peter, where can everybody reach you? It's the website is, I want to pronounce it right again, the company name.
Oransi.
Oransi. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, ORANSI.com.
Awesome. And I can be reached if you have any questions, thinkcommunity@jondwoskin.com. Peter, this was great. I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate your time. All the best, and thanks for doing great things, and thanks for being an advocate. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, John. Enjoyed it.